impact I've made on the environment. I've tried to reduce my usage of plastic by using paper bags as well as cloth bags to carry my grocery or any other items I need to carry. I've decided to switch off all the lights and electrical appliances when not in use in order to save electricity and therefore save the environment. I also switch off all the taps when I'm not using them, including when I'm brushing my teeth, so that I can conserve water. I also utilize the water that comes out of the water purifier and use it to water plants, so that water is also not put to waste. I segregate my waste into dry and wet wastes, and I also try to recycle a lot of the wastes in order to reduce garbage production. I think the work that was organized by DNA Life through Puttenahalli really inspired me to make an even more positive impact on the environment. I've decided to reduce my waste production by recycling even more than I'm doing right now. I've decided to plant even more saplings and more trees in order to have a more greener environment. I really think the DNA Life organization helped me realize how much we can actually contribute to the environment and look forward to a green future.
Hi, nature is always such a source of beauty and wonder, and it's a huge responsibility for us to implement certain changes in order to live in harmony with nature. Changes that I've implemented for the betterment of nature are usage of more steel and copper utensils compared to the number of plastic utensils that we use, and usage of solar water heaters instead of geysers and which consume a lot of electricity, and usage of cloth bags and other substitutes for plastic bags. And if we do use plastic bags, we need to recycle them. And this is a huge problem where when we're traveling, we tend to throw stuff, like we tend to throw away used plastic covers. Instead, we can keep a bin. That's what I have done and my family have done, which is we keep a small bin in the car so that the used plastic covers can be thrown in that. And waste segregation is important because some of the wet waste we can recycle it on our own and make it as a compost for all the different kind of plants to be grown at home. And the obvious dry waste can be recycled. On Sunday, we went on a lake drive organized by DNA Life organization, which taught us so much about sustainable farming, afforestation, and the lake drive. The lake is such a beautiful habitat for all the flora and fauna. We saw many different kinds of trees and flowers, and it was home to so many birds. So it was very insightful and educative, full of resources. After going on the lake drive, it inspires you to take up so many other changes that you can actually do for the betterment of nature. And some of the changes include having a nice garden, even if it's small. Like being a home to many plants is a nice thing, especially when you're living in urban areas. And the other changes include sustainable living, like using earthen roofing instead of AC fans and everything. And eating healthy, that's a very important change to be taken. So to conclude, there is so much to give back to nature, and I hope all of them take up the responsibility to do that.
Positive contributions I've made towards the environment are I've completely stopped the usage of plastic, which includes using plastic bags for groceries. So I've shifted to paper bags and cloth bags as much as possible. And I've also stopped the usage of plastic bottles and shifted to metal bottles. The second change that I've brought in is while brushing and washing utensils, we tend to waste a lot of water. So I've tried switching off all necessary taps and all water outlets during that. The third change that I've tried to do is planting more saplings, which will add to the greenery of the environment. I've also tried switching from unhealthier oils to healthier oils such as olive oil. One thing that I was inspired from is the activity that takes place in my apartment, which is the segregation of dry and wet waste. So the people in our apartment, when they come to collect waste, they always ensure that the residents segregate the waste into dry and wet. So that way we don't mix them up together. Another change that I've tried to bring in is, it often happens that when we leave our rooms, we tend to keep the fans and the lights switched on. So I've tried to lessen that. I always try to ensure that whenever I'm in a room or I'm leaving a room, the fans and the lights which are not in use are switched off. There are a few more changes which I'd like to bring towards the environment, which includes using buckets for bathing, because during showers a lot of water is wasted. I'd like to plant even a higher number of saplings and trees because it adds to the greenery of our environment, and we know the greener the better. I'd also like to stress upon the practice of reusing things as much as possible so that wastage is minimized. So these are the few changes I'd like to add. We recently visited the Puttenahalli lake and we were 8 of us, and there we got to know about the different kinds of trees, plants, flowers and everything that exists in nature. It was a very insightful walk through the woods, and it was very inspiring because the number of plants and trees and how the people took care actually helped us understand how important it is to take care of the environment, and we'll all try to focus more on adding to the betterment.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the changes that I've made for a greener tomorrow. So first of all, I would like to talk about the ways we can reduce the water usage. So what I do is I try to take bucket baths instead of using the shower, and then another way that I try to reduce water usage is I reuse the water that I don't drink for watering plants. Another way that we can reduce water usage is switching off the tap whenever possible. For example, when you brush your teeth, we usually let the water run while we are brushing our teeth. By switching off the tap, by turning off the tap, we can reduce water usage. So yeah, then another way I try to save the environment is reducing my energy usage. So I switch off the fans and lights whenever I leave the room, and I ensure that I educate others also to do so. And then reusing material is something that we don't do. I also try to practice that by using cloth bags instead of plastic bags when I visit the supermarket. And if you're using plastic bags, I ensure that reuse it so that it doesn't get thrown out after one usage. Another thing that we can do as a society is use metal bottles instead of plastic bottles. That's what I follow. And what changes I would like to make in the future is I would like to learn more about gardening, and I would also like to order food out less and try to cook on my own. So yeah, on Sunday we visited Puttenahalli Lake with DNA Life, which was headed by Dr. Malali Gowda, and this visit really gave us an insight to our local flora and fauna, and it was interesting to learn about the nature around us, and I'm hoping to widen my knowledge about nature so that I can work for a greener.
Some changes within myself with respect to eco-friendly practices, like switching towards alternatives for plastic, paper bags, cloth bags, steel containers, and much more. I've also started involving myself more in gardening and spending more time with nature, like taking morning walks and evening walks. I've also started to keep a proper check on the usage of resources at home, especially when it comes to electricity and water, and we know they are non-renewable resources. But this doesn't stop with here. I still have more to accomplish, like proper management and recycling of wastes, and expanding my knowledge based on sustainable development and environmental protection. Also, I'm working on ways to switch to a proper balanced diet with a reduced use of additive intakes. In addition to all this, the nature walk we had with the DNA Life organization in the Puttenahalli Lake was very insightful, and it helped us in gaining knowledge about the ecosystem and the role that the environment plays in our future. So I would like to consider saying that any change we would want to bring in our environment is to be brought from ourselves rather than relying on others for it. So let's start changing our attitude towards nature and our practices so that we can
I've introduced, along with my family, for the betterment of the environment, I use less electricity by not using the fans or AC as much as possible. Then I try not to travel a lot by methods of car wherever not possible. I either walk, take cycle, or I run, depending on the distance. And for reducing the amount of water wastage, I use a special knob on the tap that allows only minimum amount of water that is required to come out. And then while washing vegetables, the excess water that is brought about, I reuse them to wash vegetables sometimes or to water the plants. And I have reduced the use of plastics by not using plastic bags when going to the supermarket or for shopping, but instead using either cloth or paper bags, and along with the almost complete less usage of plastic boxes or bottles as much as it is possible. Then the changes that I would like to implement are the possibility of planting more trees. Whatever less plastic is being used, even more lesser plastic to be used. then to save water by methods of using it less by washing vegetables and dishes. On Sunday, we got a great opportunity due to the help of DNA Live to go to the Puttenahalli lake, where we got to exposure to a wide variety of flora and fauna, and with the help of Dr. Malali, we were given a lot of information and insight into the physiology and the coexistence of how the trees and the different forms of life forms like insects and animals are interacting.
I wanted to speak about how do I want to bring changes about in the nature, and how I have, as far as I've fared in bringing about current changes to make a better and eco-friendlier nature. First, I want to say that I have reduced the plastic consumption and brought about the paper bag, brought about the consumption, I mean the use of paper bags more. Like going to shops, I have been using more cloth bags or hand-knit bags, which are found often in the markets for shopping and other groceries. So this has helped me in having ensured a better and conservative nature. So I have also reduced the consumption of electricity by turning off the lights and unplugging the appliances by after every use. So regarding paper bags and glasses, I have also started recycling. Like in Bengaluru, you can see many dustbins and trash cans where they have labeled as recycle and non-recycled as biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So glasses and other plastic waste which are biodegradable, which have the eco label of 3 or 4 years of biodegradable, non-biodegradable waste, I usually dump it in them. And for biodegradable waste, paper and other fruit pulps and other vegetable wastes which are much required as biodegradable waste, I have dumped in the biodegradable trash can. Going out for walks in a local area in the evenings has helped me understand the nature better and conserve and preserve more about the bushes, herbs and flowers which are there in the gardens and the roadside areas, and help water them and bring out a better nature. So things I like to improve is to eat more healthy and more healthy food comprising of more fruits and vegetables, because I haven't been eating that much of veggies and fruits which are required for my body, but what is necessary for me. The things I like to improve are eat more healthy foods comprising of more veggies and fruits and veggies, which will help me, and the dietary fibers which will help me have a better ecosystem inside my body and a better system of bacteria. And also I should be planting more seeds and saplings wherever possible in outside area, roads, soils. And finally, I would like to recycle wrappers which have the eco label more often.
For the individual level of changes I've made in order to be more eco-friendly. So starting off, I carry cloth bags for shopping everywhere in order to reduce plastic waste, and I also segregate dry and wet waste. So that's two things I've been following religiously. And I also try to use public transport more often in order to use less fossil fuels. I've also been trying to reduce my meat and dairy consumption, because the meat and dairy industry produce a lot of carbon footprint. Moving on, I like to use leftovers in order to make new dishes the next day, so I can reduce food waste that way. And also I try to eat healthy, like cook with less oil, and use more lentils and nutritious food. And finally, I've been trying to use reusable sanitary products as well in order to reduce the plastic waste caused by pads. And some places I could improve would be using fewer single-use products such as tissues, and growing more plants indoors, which I've been doing more often now, because growing more plants indoors has been a journey, and ever since I moved from my old place to my new home right now, I haven't been able to grow any plants. So the nature walk yesterday was really useful, and I got some new plants to grow, and walking outside in greenery. So I live in an apartment complex, and there is some greenery around my complex, but I would like to include more nature walks outside. Finally, I would improve my advocacy for more eco-friendly practices in any social setting, discussing how important climate change is and how our individual practices affect it and how we can change things in our daily life is very important, and it's not like something we can put in the back burner and discuss later. Changes start with every individual improving their practices. Like things we do in our daily life add up to so much more and cause so much harm to the planet. So it's time we started thinking about ourselves before we can take a step towards working at a social and society.